Okay, welcome to this support video number 3. We're going to talk a little bit about example projects. What makes a great visualization? Now, first of all, I must say that last year when we conceived of this competition for the first time, we used this coxcomb visual. It's quite old. Florence Nightingale is known as the mother of modern nursing. And this visualization helps give her a place as a developer of modern data visualizations, perhaps the first to do so. In it, you notice that it's kind of broken into 2 pieces, and there's some text and a title and some labels. That's what you're going to see in our projects that I'm going to show you, because this was our only example last year. Students literally went from a very, very, very old visualization to creating stuff in 2025. And so you will see similar elements: text, labels, and sometimes multiple visualizations. Okay, so clean and elegant. Let's start there. This first one, it has a really big, large title. It's almost half of the page. And then it has a very readable, easy to understand graph. And it has 2 axes, like a y-axis and an x-axis that helps describe what's going on. And it kind of moves from left to right. You can see that movement pretty easily. And so the y-axis is the per capita GDP. And then we have energy consumption on the X, and it's set up just as you might think. And the numbers are easy to read. And the correlation is obvious. So this person doesn't really need to tell me more of a story. There doesn't need to be more text. The visualization does a nice job of describing it. Maybe if I got in a little bit closer to the data, if it was more readable, the little pie charts inside of the graph, that might help me a little bit. But really, I can see a very clear connection between the question and the graph. Okay, in the next one, we see a cow and a descending order of this idea here: GDP, per capita, and meat consumption, starting with Sweden and going all the way down to Lithuania. There's some interesting things if you read it from left to right as to what you're going to get out of it, but ultimately I feel like some of the meaning might have been lost in the cute nature of this particular visualization, but it is really clear that relationship between the two. I don't necessarily see the story all the way, but the visualization does a nice job. This one it does temperature impact abundance of marine species. We've got some text for the first time off to the right that describes what we're reading. But even without this text, I'm halfway done reading the text on the right side, only to understand that I can see what they want to get at, and that's jellyfish. Jellyfish are an outlier. Depth of information. And so these projects maybe are going to be a little bit less clear, but have a tremendous amount of depth of information. So they researched a little bit more and probably had more time spent trying to organize their data. And so in this first one, carbon on your plate, you see not 1, not 2, but 3 visualizations and a nice infographic bubble down below. That's 4 major elements here. That's a lot going on, and I may lose the thread of the story. But the data is very clear in each of the graphics. The very first one, I can see beef is an outlier. I'm not necessarily sure what I'm supposed to look at on the next one to the right of it, but I do see beef and poultry seem to stick out. And then water usage seems like a side question of the carbon question, but maybe it adds some character as well. So maybe the top 2 might have made more sense to me as a story. I start to lose the story at water usage. But hey, it's readable. It has a lot of depth in it. It has a clear question. There's just lots happening here that's worth enjoying, even if the story itself might get lost a little bit. Okay, moving on to the next one, from carbon on your plate, we see a really nice graphic. This reminds me a lot of the stuff that we see professionals doing online, but it might get a little bit muddy when it comes to the story. So we see a question and the size of 2 different fonts here, a serif and a sans serif font. So I feel like the text itself is a bit distracting, even if, as I read it, it is relatively clear what's happening here. Then the scatter plot itself has some muddiness to it. The data is great data. It's important to understand, but it's not always readable. And that makes it harder for me to understand the message that's coming out of it. So There's no labels on the zoom in on the top corner, but there are labels down below, which is nice because I can see the comparison of GDP and footprint. The bottom one, if it was just a lot larger with some clarity as to the location of these countries and so on, could really add a lot to it. So I felt like this one was close. I might dramatically reduce the size of the text, try to make one image of this graph that tells you everything that you need to know. The 5 and 5 rule is that the visual pops in 5 seconds and can hold your attention for 5 minutes. This one pops right away. It pops for a few reasons. The quadrants are colored differently. They're labeled. The question is interesting. I would like to know about this, but at times, I wish there was more information in it. I have 5 countries that are interesting to me: China, Canada, UAE, USA, and Qatar. I would like to know more about more countries, specifically the outlier countries in the high emissions, high risk. I think there's only something like 5 or 6 data points here. Tell me all of those countries. I want to know about them. Also, give me some more low emissions, low risk as well. I like that this data pops and holds my attention for 5 minutes, but does it fully reach that 5-minute mark? I don't know. I would like it to have some more information with it, but it is incredibly clear. It's got depth of information. The story is interesting and obvious. I just want even more. This one is also quite interesting to me. I think that the story itself is the story of our times. Is AI sustainable? We know it probably isn't, but how do we quantify that? These people in this project, they decided that they wanted to try to figure that out. And so we see ChatGPT daily emissions in kilowatt hours. How interesting is that? And then we can compare it to other types of home usage from ironing and refrigerators. So we have like a sense as to where electricity is going and how that compares to AI and everything else. So the CO2 emissions in tons as well is trying to do that. And I find that one, it's just a bar graph, but it's really interesting. It says ChatGPT 3 monthly CO2 emissions in tons. All right, then this next one, very relatable. Again, with the story arc, 5 and 5 rule, I think there's something interesting happening here. And this is about the apparel industry, our clothing, and that's something we're all going to be able to relate to, as well as the relationship between our consumption of new clothing, fashionable clothing, and CO2 emissions around the world. So great. There's a story that is interesting here. We can all relate to it. There's a clear development in their data. So they chose a range where the data is going to help them tell a story. From 2010 to 2022, their data is clear in the total global CO2 emissions on the second and bottom one. I feel that there's a really strong case in that one, but there's a case in both. The text maybe again can be reduced and the graphs themselves can be increased in order to allow me, the reader of this information, to make up my own mind. So there are some very, very interesting projects that were submitted last year and honored by the World Insights Competition. All of these have some strengths and some weaknesses. Some are better at the storytelling, some are better at representing data, but all are an honest and genuine attempt to create a data visualization representation in the spirit of this competition. And I think go along really well with the Coxcomb and Florence Nightingale's work. I wish you the best of luck as you put your data visualization projects together. We look forward to seeing them very soon.